headlines today. Ethiopia's former Minister for Women's Affairs says she resigned after Ethiopian officials blocked findings that revealed unspeakable crimes of sexual violence were committed by Ethiopian forces in Tigray. Local authorities say Eritrean government preparing to reinvade Tigray as its forces drawing deeper into the region. Hello viewers watching us live through television screens and our online social media platforms, Facebook and YouTube. I'm Marinimana, will be reading the news for you today. Stay tuned. Proceeding to the details. Former Minister for Women's Affairs, live through television screens, resigned from her position on Abiy Ahmed's cabinet in September, with the controversial Twitter post that had suggested she had somewhat of a falling out with the Prime Minister. Now in exile, the former minister says she decided to resign after high-level officials within the Ethiopian government blocked a report from her office that found the Ethiopian forces had participated in an unspeakable facts of sexual violence in Tigray. Abel Tsagabu has the report.
In an interview with the Washington Post, former Ethiopian Minister for Women and Children's Affairs, Filson Abdi says her resignation was due to Ethiopian government repeated efforts to suppress her ministry findings on sexual violence in Tigray. Abdi resigned last September after an investigation by her office on widespread allegations of sexual violence in Tigray had revealed that unspeakable crimes of sexual violence were committed by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces, after which she was told that she was crossing a line and that she was not allowed to go any further with her findings. And Abdi also added that before her resignation she was told by higher-ranking officials from Prosperity Party grants in her office and other ministry offices have to be replaced and removed immediately. Abdi expressed her dismay at the division the war has caused and the gross violation of human rights, including recruitments of child soldiers and active sponsoring of hate speech by the Ethiopian government. She also added that she thought that Abiy has always been delusional and that he will never recognize that his leadership is failing.
Local authorities in northeastern Tigray say Eritrean forces are increasing troop movements around border areas and appear to be attempting to reinvade Tigray. Eritrean forces have participated in gross violations of human rights in Tigray, torturing and killing Tigrayan civilians with impunity. Wintakidana has the report.
Eritrean forces are responsible for many of the horrific crimes committed in Tigray for the past 30 months, with Eritrean soldiers being involved in multiple massacres, sexual violence, and the deliberate destruction of health facilities and other public properties in Tigray. Now, administrator from the northeastern Tigray, Teklai Ramadan, says Eritrean forces are attempting to reinvade parts of Tigray liberated in late June.
They had continued their hostile occupation of areas close to the border, but now they have started to move deeper into Tigray and have continued to commit atrocities on communities in the area. They are also bombarding the areas with artillery. They are shelling farms and civilian homes. They are killing livestock and destroying food items. They shell the border areas, but once they start to move closer and our forces confront them, they immediately withdraw.
According to the administrator, Eritrean forces in cooperation with forces from the Amhara region have killed hundreds of residents and committed acts of sexual violence.
The Ethiopian and Eritrean force together with Amhara militia and Amhara Fano have killed many residents in our district. We have so far been able to document the brutal killing of over 2,700 innocent civilians and the rape of over 270 women, including mothers, and the abduction of over 80 people.
The 6-month-long siege that has included a complete communication blackout has made it impossible for authorities or human rights groups to uncover the magnitude of human rights violations in Tigray as Eritrean and Ethiopian forces continue to threaten to reinvade the region and cause further harm to civilians.
For the past 6 months, Tigray has been under a complete communications blackout, with no electricity, banking, and above all, no food or aid or medical supplies coming into the region, leading to the suffering of children and the elderly from easily treatable illnesses. Our reporter Garum Kail was at Mala Hospital to observe the impact of lack of medical supplies on patients.
For the past 6 months, the people of Tigray have been denied basic services like electric power, communication, banking service, and blocked all roads leading to the region. Mabrit is a year and 2 weeks old. She is currently receiving treatment for malnutrition at Mekelle Hospital that is able to provide very little care due to the depletion of medical supplies in the region.
She can't breastfeed, so she relies on milk, and I cannot afford to purchase milk for 400 birr. I buy her milk when I got money, but if I run out of money, I make her drool.
Nobil is 4 years old. He has been diagnosed with pneumonia, but his father says he is unable to afford the cost.
My name is Tsagai Taddese. I came to the hospital because my little boy is suffering from pneumonia. He's been sick for a long time, but I just brought him to the hospital now because it's getting worse. But the hospital has no medication. There is nothing to eat or drink, and there is also no electricity. I am also unable to afford medication. A lot of people are dying due to the shortage of medicine.
Touras Mbaye is a mother of 6. She leads her life selling groceries on the street. One of her children has recently become ill, but she said that the siege has not only depleted medical supplies but has deprived her and her family to a degree that she cannot afford medical treatment for her children.
It is very hard. Our survival till this day is a miracle of God. There is no work and no income. It is even impossible to use our own savings as banks are not giving service. When my child became ill, I first took her to the church for holy water because I have no money to take her to the hospital. When her pain got worse, I brought her here out of desperation. Now the doctors are suggesting surgery, but I don't know how I'm going to cover all the expenses.
Sister Lamnem is one of the health caregivers at Mekelle Hospital Pediatric Center. She described the agonizing condition of her workplace as follows.
The siege has greatly affected our capacity to provide service to our patients. In order to provide treatment, we need medical supplies, but we don't have even the basic things like medicine or oxygen. It's difficult to tell our patients to find medication elsewhere while fully aware that there is no banking service. It's very difficult to work in these conditions.
Dr. Philemon Masfen, Chief Executive Officer of Mekelle Hospital, says very basic items such as gloves are in short of supply, requiring medics to rescue essential medical supplies.
It's been almost more than a year since this has hit in a blockage. I don't describe only the incident after the takeover of the officially elected regional government of Tigray, which is after June 28th. I don't think the siege was only after that. Even before that, we were short of so many medical supplies and reagents and medication. So since this war has started, Tigray was not able to get what was supposed to come to our region, even if during the time of the PP, it was really difficult to get the medical supplies and other services, even the psychology and courage of our servants and staffs were in a much questionable position. So, but to come to the current condition which was after June 28th, which we are under total siege and blockage, it's really difficult because health is one of the most, maybe the first, to be affected by this kind of conditions, because almost all medications and supplies we used to get them from the central government, from Addis Ababa. To give you an instant which could be a very good example to this, as of 1 month ago, the Regional Health Bureau has already distributed a letter to reuse surgical gloves, which by far I haven't seen in my life, but you can imagine how the siege and blockage is contributing to this kind of decisions.
The international community must do something to end this suffering. This is a matter of life or death. It is impossible to treat patients without any medication.
It's been more than a year since the people of Tigray is under a genocidal war, but still we couldn't hear anything from the security office or from the UN office, rather than giving concerns. We don't see anything going to the ground by action. So sometimes you ask to yourself the very question that this organization is what the aim and what the vision and mission of these organizations are. We are losing hundreds and thousands of people just because of this blockage and siege. Yet every now and then they just release a press saying they are already concerned. Of course, it's been a year. How concerned could they be after losing so many patients and so many people that we can help? So I say to the international community, if they cannot act now, it will be a regret to the people of the world. We are part of the world, and as a human being, it's our right to get our basic human rights. That's all what we are asking for. That's not a luxury that we are asking. We are just asking for the basic human rights services. So for the international community, please act now or never.
The systematic destruction of over 80% of Tigray's health facilities had led to complete collapse of Tigray's health system, while this 6 months long siege is making it impossible for the system to revive.
For over a year now, the Ethiopian government has arbitrarily arrested and put tens of thousands of Tigrayans in internment camps across different parts of the country. This campaign against civilian Tigrayans has intensified with the coming into effect a nationwide state of emergency that allows the government to arrest and or search any person without any legal process. The Tigray television spoke with the residents of Addis that spoke about the agony of being Tigray in the capital. Let's now look at the details. The ethnic profiling, arbitrary detention, and extrajudicial killing of ordinary Tigrayans has continued to intensify. Global Society of Tigray Scholars and Professionals, in a statement in early December, says that it's been able to confirm the arrest of over 30,000 Tigrayans living in other parts of Ethiopia. The mass and arbitrary detention of Tigrayans has mortified communities everywhere, with many forced into hiding.
أنا أبدي سبب بعثرت 5 عامات متى 4 عامات تأميته ودي كأننا سرحنا هاللوي بزي طفاءته تأثيره دحنا سمس وطخ أنا يخا نامت وكذاي ناربشو فنجل لكي شقط لكي تأبنجل لكي أنت نسخنا جنتا رقا في أخي مس جنتا سرحنا يركي فتشوم فرارسهم نبرتي بلاشيوم يخدو عندنا خاور حصن حنقاني عندنا يمسون بدناتي حذغن انت اخو متيكم تلكم عندنا تعزيزنا اينا حذغن انت يلو قالك فنجي قالك شقط قالك تعيف حد فنجل لك نعرف عندنا يمسون ما ترى يمسون يخدو نبرتي
ابزي ابوي وني تاثيرو نيرو كاو غزا متيوم مفتشوم سكالاي غزي متيوم مفتشومنا كاوس دغاو صام خنا زار بكم نمني موسيدو موس تاثير قرش خفيلو منامني وصي جخا يا ابز قرب اوان كاني ابصرح بوتوس ناب 3 غزي متيوم مفتشوم ندلينا قرش يقابليو بزح ነገር يحجزيو منام توايلس تدليو يا صراح خبز خير 3 سمون صحليف ولو ابغزايني حجي ابزي خفيلو بقى ايوصن زلخو غزا كوحاني حانت حاتني وني نيرا 3 دقاسيو بزي سواء مويتوس بينا تعبيهم نير عباي سويتيا حجة تأثيرس حدور حملي والله بأسر بيتي هنيها هابز كيرا زلو مالتي.
Residents of Addis Ababa that spoke to Tigray television on conditions of anonymity say that numbers of their relatives had not only been arrested, but they themselves were being monitored.
حلقاني خو أتخبيبني خو دوت منيو زعت منيو نتبهالو بيتسب كعتوني كل حاو كعتوني يخل أبر عفي 4-5 تخيناتو من كم زعتوا من كم زوتة كريو حلو وعد لهم اللي معلتي أنا التلفزيون كأنية ناي تقرين لك نتبهالو خا سأي كأرخي بلخوس قاعد مدخاتم بيعتهم الله سواء حفتي كأنية عارفني مش عارفة هم كيف كلنا أما كين حيدو مناتي نسخي جنتا أخيلاتهم أما كينا ودينا يروح يجي نتخيل رئيس حيدا خيل كل خنو قالوا أي خدني لهم كل يوم مناتي أي ودي ماكينة سرور بيلهم برعف مع صاف غيرهم ونابرو أو تيهم أي تخدني لهم كل يوم مناتا متعرشة زنقول خان خبط قرن بسار رئيس أنا بايم تيماتو رئيس أنا بايم سمس وخاني نترئيس أو تيهم كم ماكينة رئيس هيكون نزيو مساري أيلاتهم أوريدهم كم مكينة نتريسا فتشهم بخاتشا بيتا غيرو نتريسا أوزيهم فتشهم ماتو فتشهم كأنت جنا خاني طلع خي يسدنا خاخل 9 ساعات كأم شدي ليتيو 5 ساعات إذا عارفه سبع 10 ساعات كل يومنا فتشهم كوكو أخلو عند جنا خاني كلنا وبعتهم يلهم بخاتشا بيتا غيرنا عطيهم نعم مكينة عطيو مجرشوا لك 10 ساعات كله في دهون ريسات في ذاته زموتاس بمنتايو من يغسلوا كابي يمطي ريسا حطوا معات بطحنا
حدا وني بيتسبناني سويتو تنستيانسوني حجي تخلاي مانجي يسرح نيرو كاب سرح بوتا حيزو موس سبز قالتي تاثيرني حجي ابزي كاني تصقمس كسب 3 ساعات خاصبت طيانا كاو تملالسكاس مغبن مصح بتاع خبيدين هي نادي حفتا سواء وني تاثيرني تايم خبلك يبصروا كبيت سبس نمشو من تشعت سبت تاثيرني بزوان ديكو نتخونتات بتعم خبيديو يعني نحن وني بقى ندينا نمهرنينا بتخونتات فينا نبزي تملسنا نينا مو حج خم بحج تمدي بناس يا بتعم فرحات سلزني انا وني بخاريك الكون.
While human rights groups and the United Nations have confirmed the mass arrest and detention of Tigrayans in Ethiopia, the international community has failed to go beyond rhetorical condemnation to take assertive action to end the mass arrest and abuse of Tigrayans everywhere. For the past 13 months, a research team inside Ghent University, led by John Nason, has been documenting atrocities committed all over Tigray. The research team has published many of its findings and has even managed to publish a map of recorded atrocities in Tigray. John Nason had a brief stay with Tigray television with Michael Manasseh, where he explains that there is a sufficient evidence to indicate crimes against humanity were committed in Tigray. Haile Gabru has more.
Since the start of the conflict over 30 months ago, Jan Nissen, a professor of geography at Ghent University in Belgium, and his team have been documenting atrocities committed in different parts of Tigray, meticulously documenting violence perpetrated against civilians, the form of violence, actors, number of victims, names and locations were published. Professor Jan Nissen said that the information gathered by his team is sufficient to indicate that war crimes and crimes against humanity were committed by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces in Tigray.
Now maybe first something that it is easy to accuse both sides if you start a report with the idea this report must be balanced, and we are going to find some war crimes by each of them. Yeah, they have started from that idea. Such a report should start from the idea this report should be truth. And not it should be balanced, and we are going to find some war crimes by each of them. What we found, and I'm a bit zooming on my numbers. In 45% of the cases, and I'm taking about the fully documented civilian casualties, 45% has been killed by Eritrean soldiers, 20% has been killed by Ethiopian soldiers, 17%. Either Ethiopian or Eritrean, because they were there together, and when the people came back, they found the dead, so they cannot know who did it. 4% by Amhara, and then we have 12.5% that are not provided, and very often that is related to Western Tigray because it has always been so difficult to get information out of there, and then a small 1% by Tigray forces. And that is what we have in our data set.
Professor Nissen, who has led the research, disclosed that atrocities are escalating in Western Tigray, where Amhara forces have started to displace, detain and kill Tigrayans.
And we can see, generally speaking, that there is a connection. Very often the massacres are in the place where there has been fights. Except in Western Tigray. Especially Humera, there is no more fighting, but massacres continue. That's also, and we get still information not only from Humera but other places in Western Tigray where massacres still take place now.
Professor Jan Nissen also highlighted the dangers of the ongoing siege on Tigray that has weaponized food aid and medical supplies, endangering lives of millions across the state in need of emergency food assistance.
For more than 2 months now, aerial attacks by the Ethiopian Defense Forces have killed hundreds of civilians across Tigray. We spoke to the residents of Ma'ala to see how their daily lives have been affected by the continuous bombardment at the capital.
Airstrikes are the worst because they happen so suddenly. If it was something you can prepare for, it would have been more tolerable.
The airstrikes are causing psychological trauma on the people and making it impossible for them to lead normal lives. Everyone is scared. This is a very traumatic experience for all of us. People panic when they hear the sounds of civilian aircrafts because it reminds them of airstrikes. We are unable to make a living as we are being bombarded every day. The international community should understand what the people of Tigray are going through. The siege has caused death and starvation. In addition to that, they are being bombarded on a daily basis. The international community needs to prioritize humanity. Political interests should be secondary. We've had enough. At this rate, it doesn't feel like we will live to see another week. We call on the international community to help us find a solution.
People are unable to go about their daily lives. Everyone, child and the elderly, are afraid. I don't have the words to express how hard this is. Everyone keeps looking up at the sky, scared that there might be another attack. Every sound reminds us of the attacks. The international community should see all this and do something more than releasing "we are concerned" statements.
Karno is startled as all as we think it is a drone attacking. We are trying to overcome the economic problems that we are facing, but the continuous attacks are disrupting our daily lives. It is very stressful. Everyone looks up at the sky even when the United Nations airplane arrive, thinking that it is the fighter jets or drones.
The area bombardments are affecting the lives of civilians. The pregnant, children, elderly, everyone in general is having a difficult time. The targets of all the attacks are civilians, not soldiers or military camps. I ask the international community to condemn these acts and work towards bringing them to a stop.
The aerial attacks by Abiy Ahmed's government are disrupting people's daily lives. Everyone keeps looking up at the sky, thinking there might be a drone. This is in addition to the effects of the siege. Drone attacks have made our lives very difficult. It is sad how the international community is not taking the appropriate measures while hundreds are dying.
The drone is terrifying civilians because it's targeting them. All the attacks are directed at civilians, areas where there are mass gatherings and churches. Abiy Ahmed's only intention is to cleanse Tigrayanis. Drones provided to Abiy are attacking us. The international community is idly looking, while it should be playing its part to bring it to an end. Now is the time to act.
The government of Tigray announced weeks ago that it would be withdrawing its forces from neighboring regions to open doors for negotiations. Religious leaders from Tigray have come together to show their support for the decision, saying that the cessation of hostilities and peace talks are the only way forward. Vanya Lemiro has more.
Since the start of the conflict, the government of Tigray has repeatedly called for the cessation of hostilities and start to a negotiation process. Recently, the government of Tigray has taken a bold step by withdrawing all its forces from neighboring regions, taking initiative to start peace talks. Religious leaders have acknowledged these bold steps by stating negotiation and political dialogue is the only way forward.
This is a great decision. We support it because it opens up the door for peace talks. It is so great that the government of Tigray decided to withdraw and take a step forth to open up a door for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. This may end the bloody war. Religiously speaking, this is admirable and we support the decision.
Religious leaders call for the international community to put pressure on the Ethiopian government to pursue a negotiated settlement to the conflict and condemn countries arming the Ethiopian government.
The people of Tigray have suffered tremendously because of Abiy's regime and his allies. These forces have bombarded, massacred and besieged the people of Tigray. Due to the siege, children in Tigray are starving. The humanitarian catastrophe has escalated to its climax. The world must act now.
The
international community should take decisive actions to stop this madness.
The
international community should put pressure on Abiy Ahmed into making him accept the calls of negotiation from the government of Tigray. They must also take assertive action to put a stop to airstrikes on the civilians in Tigray. Countries like United Arab Emirates, Iran and Turkey are still arming the government of Abiy with drones, thus enabling the government of Ethiopia to undertake numerous aerial strikes on civilians. These strikes have caused many damages in places like Alamata, Maicho, Koram and other parts of Tigray, including the capital Mekelle. The world must stop this madness immediately.
Although the Ethiopian government announced that its forces will not advance into Tigray, the government is still conducting numerous aerial strikes in different cities across Tigray, causing unspeakable damage on civilians and public property.
The government of Tigray had announced that it's withdrawing its forces from the neighboring Amhara and Afar regions. Many, including the U.S. government, have supported this act, although the Ethiopian government has so far failed to reciprocate. Murthy Mutiga, an analysis for The Horn, called these bold decisions by the government of Tigray a silver of hope, although stating multiple reasons while a peaceful end to the conflict may not yet be attainable. Salome Taghlai has more on this.
The government of Tigray has announced on December 19, 2020, that it is withdrawing its forces from the neighboring regions of Amhara and Afar to give peace a chance and put an end to the 13 months long conflict. This bold move by the government of Tigray has drawn international praise by many actors, including the United States government. Murthy Mutiga from the International Crisis Group called the withdrawal of Tigray forces from the neighboring Amhara and Afar regions a silver of hope for an end to the 13 months long war in Ethiopia. In an interview with Deutsche Welle, DW, Mutiga said that Abiy's fear to upset his closest allies, Amhara and Eritrea, could, however, be an obstacle to a sustained peace. The analyst also added that the president of Eritrea, Isaias Afwerki, is likely to prefer continued war against the elected government of Tigray rather than peace talks, given that he has been the primary ally of Abiy Ahmed since the beginning of the war in November 2020. Because of these reasons and a deep mistrust between the warring parties, the obstacles to a sustained peace are formidable, puts the analyst. The government of Ethiopia had said that its forces won't advance farther into Tigray, while drones and fighter jets have been bombarding the cities and towns of Tigray, killing numerous innocent civilians.
Tigray External Affairs Office released a press statement on Thursday regarding atrocities committed on Tigrayans in Abala, Afar. According to the statement, more than 250 Tigrayans have been murdered and over 900 families have been forcibly evicted from their homes and sent to Enderta district in Tigray. The statement says children, women, and the elderly were expelled without food, clothing, and medication, and that the attack was just on the account of their identity. The statement also stated the Eritrean forces have participated in the recent atrocities and that few reactionary elements within the Afar regional government are eroding the long-standing relationship between the people of Tigray and Afar, undermining the harmonious coexistence between the two brotherly people. The statement also said that the government of Tigray demands, in the strongest terms, that Afar regional government put a stop to the mass murder, release those who have been illegally detained, and bring the perpetrators to justice. The office says the Afar regional government will bear sole responsibility for the consequences of the legitimate defensive actions that the government of Tigray may be forced to take in the events that its forces continue to abuse and kill Tigrayan residents. And with that, we're going to wrap up our news for the hour. I'm Maren, live from Mekelle, Tigray. Thank you for tuning in.